I'm going to talk a bit about, give you an overview on managed environments, environment strategy, environment groups. If you just raise your hand, either on camera or on Teams, is it something that you've already played with? Is it something that you use already? Be good to get a bit of a gauge from the audience how familiar you are. So we've got a few hands going up. Yeah, 5, 6. So a few of you, so about 10%-ish from the attendees, and kind of from talking to clients, I think that's probably pretty representative from the conversations that I've had as well. So let me jump into, I've just got a few slides as we've only got 20 minutes. Just want to give you a bit of a flavor for what is all this stuff and why should I be interested and is it important? So I'll kick off just with a brief intro. So I know some of you, but for those that don't know me, I'm Simon Owen. I've been in the Power Platform space primarily for the last 6 years, 6.5 years, some in the partner world with Avanade, working with Angeliki. But prior to that kind of client side, I spent 16 years in the pharma organization where I was Power Platform lead and establishing governance and guardrails, growing communities. And just the last 3 months, I became a BizApps MVP as well. So I write blogs, I speak at conferences. So there's a QR code there and there's some links at the end that you can click on. Come and have a look and engage afterwards if you've got any other follow-up questions as well. So in this session, just going to give you a little bit of an overview. So I'm sure that all of you probably know about environments, but I just want to kind of level set and remind you what environments are, and then talk a little bit around, well, what is an environment strategy and how do I apply that? And then we'll go into a bit more around, well, these managed environments, Microsoft are talking a lot about them. There's a lot of investment in them. What are they? What do they do? Why should I be interested? And the same with environment groups. So if I think about an environment, this is an analogy I use all the time, and I think it really brings an environment to life for me. So underneath Dynamics, underneath the Power Platform, we've got these environments, and essentially they're a place to work. And I always compare it to like a Formula One pit garage. So what you can see there is you've got the app, you've got the tool, you've got the first party app, you've got the car. That's the thing. That's the main point of interest. But also you've got the right data there for that team to know what they're doing, to connect it to the car, to understand what's going on. You've got the right tools so you can do the right tasks that you're allowed to. And you'll see that you've got the right people in there as well. So you've got security around that. So you've got the right people doing the right things in the right place with the right data and the right tools. And essentially that's what we're talking about for an environment. And underneath our implementation of Dynamics or Power Platform, we need some of these things so that we can segregate who's doing what and where they're doing it. Now, we don't want just one environment because not everything's the same. It might be that I need to really look after my business critical solutions. I need to have that control and governance and that application lifecycle management that you'll hear about. But if I'm doing something in Power Platform as a citizen developer, do I really need to know about establishing pipelines? Do I really need to test things to the level that I might do with my Dynamics implementation? Probably not. So the way that I look at it is to break it down in terms of complexity, and essentially it's in terms of risk. So at one end, it might be me doing something that just improves my life. It makes everything a little bit easier. And I can consider that a small level of risk. But if I'm deploying something to the enterprise that's business critical, that's using sensitive data, well, then that's an XL level of risk. That's something that I really need to get my hands around and really manage effectively. And so I can establish my governance and my environment strategy in the same way. So at the smallest end, these are the solutions which might be people using general Office 365 connectors. So their DLP policy will just be defining the level of risk to be really, really small. I might be fine with them using the default environment for that sort of stuff. But as the complexity and the risk climbs, I want to think about, well, how do I actually segregate things so that I can manage my solutions through these different levels, through a solution development lifecycle, through an application lifecycle management process, have the right testing, produce the right documents, have the right support model around it, make sure the right people are doing the right things in the right place. So for something like our Dynamics implementation, we can think about the environments being dev, test, prod. It might be that we have 4 levels. It depends on the organization and how they operate. But essentially, we want to segregate what's going on in these different areas. And managed environments just allows us to take it to the next level. So it's a bit of a busy slide, this one, but there's so much that managed environments actually brings with it. So if I talk you through the structure, first of all, before we get into the detail, what I've done is to list down all of the different capabilities that a managed environment can provide. And they're the things down the left-hand side. I've then identified, well, what does it give me? So I've labeled those as controls and compliance. It might enable a process and make things happen better or smoother or more effectively. It might help with comms and engagement. It might be information and insights that it gives me. And then you'll see that some of these are marked in orange. So they are the ones that we can group, but we'll talk about that in a moment. So if we just go down the list on this one, so limit sharing speaks for itself. This is a way that we can make sure that me as an environment owner, I'm allowed to share with X number of people, but no further than that. So it gives me some capability on how much control I'm willing to hand off to that environment owner. Then we've got something like weekly usage insights. So this is really about data. Underneath the platform, we can use tools like the COE starter kit that Microsoft produced to get some pretty good analytics. We can use the Power Platform Admin Center to get some good visibility of what's going on. This is a way for us to push out those insights automatically. So if we turn on managed environments for these things, all of a sudden our owners are then getting those insights painlessly and seamlessly as well. So they're able to see what's going on, who's using things, how frequently are they using them, how many launches are there, how many runs have there been on some of my flows. Then we've got things like data policy visibility. So the people in that environment can see what connectors they've got access to. Perhaps a little bit less critical for some users, but it's there if we want to turn it on. Then we've got something around pipelines. So you'll hear more about ALM in the second half of the call, but essentially that's how do we move things through that solution development lifecycle. Then we've got some more citizen development focused solutions. So something like a maker welcome. If I go to the platform as a citizen developer, if I haven't got managed environments, I don't see anything. I don't get a welcome. I don't get directed to help content. I don't really know what to do unless I go there with some knowledge. What we can do is create that maker experience to be a lot more friendly, a lot more engaging. Welcome them to a community, send them a link to it, point them to knowledge information. So we can have a much more targeted experience when people join the platform, a lot more nurturing and help people do the right thing. And we can enforce some things like solution checking. So forcing people to use the testing tools that are built into the platform, trying to improve our code quality, our experience of getting things into production seamlessly and without any negative impact. And then there's a chunk of security things. So we've got things like IP firewalls, IP cookie bindings, custom managed keys and lockboxes. So they're all about making sure that we're giving the right control to the organization to manage their data. So these are things that by default, Microsoft manage for most organizations, but there's the option of turning some of these things over to the organization. We can also extend backup. So by default, Data1st has a backup period of 7 days. For a lot of business critical solutions, that's not enough. We need it to be longer. So that allows us to extend it out to 4 weeks. So DLP, you'll be familiar with, but this is around desktop flows. So rather than the Dynamics apps or Power Platform apps or Power Automate flows. This is about the RPA solutions. And if people need to control what connectors are being used, they need managed environments to do that as well. Then we've got some reporting capability around managing data out into application insights. So again, greater visibility of what people are doing, what functionality they're using, how are they using our solutions, so we can gain some insights on, well, where do we focus effort, what features might we want to remove or turn off. And then default environment routing. A lot of organizations have a lot of problems around citizen developers creating things in the default environment. So me as an individual, if I go to an organization, or my organization's make.powerapps.com, we all get dumped into the same area. You can end up with tens of thousands of solutions in there which are out of control. The organization isn't sure whether there's any business criticality to them. So using some of this functionality, actually we're able to shepherd people off and put them in their own environment so that they have their own development space. So we've got a lot more segregation around who's doing what and where are they doing it, and a lot of granularity around our reporting. Then we've got some Copilot stuff, because no presentation is complete without mentioning Copilot at least once. So this allows us to really get some insights into what that solution's doing. So using Copilot, we can understand what Copilot thinks the goal of that solution is. So it gives us some real good insights into how do we classify that? Is that important? What kind of process is it doing? Why should we intervene? Should we let it go? So that gives us some insights into that. And then there's more control around conditional access. So do I want to turn on multi-factor authentication? Do I want permission just in certain geographies? We can put some extra controls down to an individual app level. And then finally, around blocking unmanaged customizations. So when we're in that production environment, possibly into that test or that QA environment, we don't want people to be making changes. They're out of control. So actually we want to be able to control who's doing what in that space and really only use managed solutions. Now, there's a lot going on there, and not everybody's going to use everything all at once. It really comes back to that kind of scale of risk of, do I need to control some of these things? Because as an admin, as a platform owner, we really want to try and make our life as simple as possible, enable the platform as much as we can, but keep the data and the organization and the people safe. So So what I've then done is to think, well, okay, well, when would I use some of these things? So if we think about that risk model of small, medium, large, and extra large, of increasing levels of risk, all I've done is to go through each of those and then think, well, okay, well, is it important to a citizen developer? Is it more likely that it's important to a pro dev or a business critical solution? And just using a simple traffic light system, you can then see, well, okay, well, something like usage insights actually is pretty interesting to everybody. So if I was a pro dev that owned some environments, if I owned Dynamics 365 instance, great. Getting insights on that is great. As an individual maker, if I got insights that I can go and tell my boss how great a job I'm doing and the impact that I'm having, that's wonderful as well. But if we think about things, say, down here, where actually things like conditional access, if I'm an individual making solutions for me or 3 or 4 of us in our team, am I going to need to worry about conditional access? Probably not. If I'm deploying something globally and really need to control about what data needs to stay in which geographies, yeah, now it's important. So it's really a balancing act. We've got a great big toolbox that the managed environments provide us, but actually, are all of them important? So some of them, yes, some of them, no, some of them may be. And really, it's about looking at the capabilities, thinking about what we're trying to do in the organization and the type of solution that we're trying to enable, and then choosing whether that's the right thing or which of these are the right tools for the job to be in control of that. And if I were to, before I move on, actually, the orange part. So what we can do to make these things easier is to group the controls together. So if you imagine I've got a dev, test, and prod environment, some of these controls, I don't want to go into the dev environment and control and configure, then the test environment, configure it the same, then into the prod environment and configure that the same. What I can do is to start grouping these things together so that if there's consistency across these controls, actually I can set those once and they apply to all of those environments that are within. So that's what you'll see with the orange markings there. So just to summarize, really, so where we are, managed environments, yes or no, you'll get different views, I think, if you look on LinkedIn or you come to conferences. I think my view is really yes. So as a Dynamics implementation, you haven't got any licensing considerations. You could turn these things off, but really looking at the ones that add value is really key. If you've got those higher risk use cases in the Power Platform world, it's a yes. So for me, those should sit in either their own environments, their own dev, test, prod environments, or perhaps a shared set of environments. But usually those higher risk or those enterprise scale solutions are really premium license. They're using data first. They might be model driven apps. So you've got the licenses, go out there and explore how you can better control and better govern. You get that extra security and those additional options, especially where there's that business criticality or that sensitivity of data. It makes governance a lot easier and the administration a lot easier by being able to group these things together. So in some organizations, you may see up to thousands of environments. So anything we can do to help administer that easier, we should grab it with both hands. And there's also an element around that maker experience. So nurturing them, welcoming them to the platform, helping guide them to the right information. But for me, that's where the asterisk comes in. So if you're purely thinking Power Platform, if you've got the premium licenses already, it's a no-brainer for me. Turn these things on, use default environment routing so that people get their own developer environments, welcome them, send them analytics. If you haven't, I don't think it's as black or white an answer. So if you've got an organization of tens of thousands of people, and to turn them on for the default environment, you need to buy them all a premium license, you're probably not going to get it. So there's a bit of decision making really there to think about, well, where is that balance, risk versus reward versus cost. And so hopefully that gives you a real quick overview of what a managed environment is, what are some of the controls that it enables, how does it help makers, platform owners, or administrators. But there's a few links there that will send you off to various locations. So some are my blog, some are Microsoft, but that'll fill in some of those gaps that you might have. But if there's any immediate questions, happy to take them.